Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. You may have seen a couple of years ago we did the first start of the old Datsun 1500 Ute. First start in 20 years that was. Closer look. Wow, she's pretty dusty. But wow, this is rough. Oh, look at that. That's 20 years worth of dirt coming off of this thing. Oh yeah. Oh well, so it's definitely not seized. Oh, it wants to run. 20 years. And then we did the first drive of the Datsun Ute in 20 years. Took a bit of getting, some work to it. We did the brakes, got the clutch. Well, when I say we did the brakes, they were kind of working by the end, and the clutch was. Well, there you go, folks. That's the first drive of the Datsun Ute in 20 years. We did it. We also picked up another Datsun Ute. You can see it there in the background. Bit of a spare parts project to keep the red one going. But anyway, there were a lot of comments at the time about the fact that we didn't ever do an oil change. So today, the plan is see if we can get this red Datsun Ute running again, and then we'll heat her up and we'll do a first oil change. And talking to the original owner, he said he never changed the oil in 4 or 5 years, the last 4 or 5 years that he had it. So I reckon this will be the first oil change that this red Datsun 1500 Ute has had in 25 years. So today, folks, it's going to be the first oil change in 25 years for the Datsun 1500 Ute. Drop a comment down below. What's she going to look like when she comes out? We're going to see chunks of oil, chunks of metal. I don't know. We gave it a good old thrashing on that old 20-year-old oil. But let's have a look anyway. Let's get into it. So just a bit of a quick recap of the things we had to do to this old Ute. We put a new carburetor on it. We've got a new clutch slave cylinder, a new brake master cylinder. We will probably have to jerry rig up some sort of a temporary fuel tank just to get it running in the first place. That's just from mucking around with it, just because the fuel pump's a bit dead. But look at this. Even the tyres are still pumped up since last time we had it running. I'd say that's over a year ago since last time we had it running. Quick, come around here, you can see the tyres are still pumped up here. So, why don't we see if we can find a battery? We'll throw a battery in it and see if we can fire it up to start with, to see what we got. All right, so as you can see, I've jerry-rigged up that temporary fuel tank, and the nice thing about that is straight away you can see that it's primed the float bowl. So carburetor's now full of fuel, and that's just going to give it a bit of a head start when we try to start cranking it. Now we'll throw a charged battery into it. Always make sure you get the negative and the positive around the right way. So on this battery, we've got the positive on the left there, and the negative over there. So as I said, make sure that you get the connections around the right way. So here's the strap with the earth straight to the engine, so that's going to be the negative. So we can put that on, and we've got the positive here, so that's going to fit across there. So put the negative on, chuck the positive on, and then we'll jump inside and see if she'll fire up. Make sure we check the water. She's got some water still in the radiator. So we've got some fuel, we've got the carburetor primed up, got a fresh battery in it. Let's see if she'll fire up. So she's warming up nicely. So we've got a new oil filter to put on. But what I'm thinking we're going to do, I found of the shed, this old can of oil, probably about 10 years old. She's a Castrol Temple NEW50, so she's absolutely perfect. What we're going to do is we're going to use this as a bit of a flushing. So we'll do a first drain and we'll fill it up with this oil. Then we'll run it again for another 15-20 minutes with this old 10-15-year-old oil in it. And then we're going to chuck a jug of this premium Penrite oil in with the new filter. And that's certainly going to be giving this old Datsun some love, isn't it? So we'll reverse her out. We'll reverse around, we'll put the front wheels up on this bit of a rise here. That's going to be enough to allow us to get under the vehicle and do an oil change. So we'll do that right now. Safety first, folks. We've just chocked both the rear wheels on this old ute. Now we'll jump under it and we'll drain that oil. All right, folks, so up under the engine here, we can feel the sump's modestly warm there. There's obviously the drain plug, so we'll get that cracked with our Nipex spanners there. Oh yeah, that's pretty easy. So get an oil pan under there, just like that. And let's see what comes out. She's certainly going to be black. We'll see. Here we go. Surprisingly, I can't see any sparkle in there. I thought there might have been a few metal flakes. So whilst that's finishing off draining there, the original owner, out of interest, has just wandered down, have a look at what we're doing here. So we'll just ask him a couple of questions about the old ute. So when did you actually buy this ute, and when was the last time you actually changed oil? Do you remember?
Well, we bought it sometime in the early 90s, and she had it side of the road, $200.
$200?
Take it or leave it. Had to go and register it then, of course, and put a bit of a third-party property insurance on it.
Yep.
But yeah, we did change the oil. I had a hand in changing the oil.
Yep.
And
how many times would you have changed the oil in the time that you actually ran it around the farm as a ute?
Oh, that was it. Once.
What, once?
Yeah.
And how many years did you run it for?
Until it broke down.
Well, until you drove it into the shed that we pulled it out of on that first start video.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got to be, if you bought her in the, what did you say, in the mid-90s?
Yeah.
So she's at least 25 years since it's had an oil change.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she was a good little runner?
Oh, yeah.
Until she stopped running.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. A bit like me.
Well, I reckon she's about drained now. So let's get that sump plug back in and we'll get that oil into the engine. So you can see she's pretty much stopped dripping under there now. So we'll get that sump plug back in and then we will get a bit of this old 10-15-year-old Castrol GTX oil in, just as a bit of a flush before we put that good Penrite oil in. So we'll get this sump plug back in now. We'll just spin that back in like that. To be honest, we're not even going to drive this, so we'll just get her in finger tight. Stick some of that oil in as a bit of a flush, get her up to temperature, and then we'll drain that again. So we'll get the oil filler cap off, and we'll get a bit of this Castrol oil into it. I don't reckon much oil actually came out of this, so I reckon we'll just put in about 3.5 litres, and then we'll measure it with the dipstick. Have a look where that's up until the dipstick. As we said, this is the most love that this ute has had in 25 years. So it's just up to the low mark now. We'll just throw an extra, say, litre in and call that good for now. There we go. So you can see, folks, it's just come up above the low mark there. So probably about a third up the indication. So good enough for a bit of a clean out. So with that fresh 10 to 15-year-old oil in there, we'll start her up. Oh, too easy, folks. How's that? How good is that? All right, folks. Well, you saw how easily that started back up now with that fresh 15-year-old oil. So we're just going to let this run now for another 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll drain that, and we'll top it off with some premium Penrite oil, and then we'll see if we'll get it driving. You know, take the kids for a bit of a drive around the farm. But look at her, she's an absolute beast. What do you reckon? Should we try and do a little bit of a mini resto on the Datsun Ute? Drop a comment below, let us know what you think, folks. You know, it's over to you. So let's tip that 25-year-old oil into this drum here, and let's have a look at it. Look, to be honest, I am so surprised that there's no sparkly in this oil. There's a few bits of debris, but I actually think that is from the tray. As you can see, the tray was a pretty grotty because it was just lying in the back of the shed with dust and rubbish all through it. But I think the oil itself is actually in remarkable condition. So, very surprising. There was just one flake of metal that I just saw go in right now. So I genuinely expected, after the abuse that we gave it, on that old oil, to see the oil in far worse condition. So time to drain that oil for the second time. As you can see, I only did that up finger tight, that drain plug, and we will see what this looks like coming out. Well, we've certainly gone from golden to a dark colour, but that's very much to be expected. So we'll just let that drain. Stick my finger in. You can see the quality of that oil looks pretty good. There's no sparkliness coming out there. So I reckon we are onto a winner with this engine. So whilst the remaining bits of oil are draining from that sump, let's use our oil remover tool to get this old oil filter off. Geez, it is on there tight. Old mate back in the day, gee, he has thrown that on tight. No wonder he only ever did one oil change. So we've pulled out the big extension bar. See if that'll get the oil filter wrench off of. Gee whiz, it is on tight. Old mate back in the day didn't believe in putting them on finger tight. She's turning slowly. Geez, you wouldn't want to bust it just getting it off. Here we go. 25 years this since she's had a new oil filter. Oh mate, here we go. She's spinning off now. Gee whiz, that is on tight. Here we go. Wow, old mate certainly didn't want that oil filter coming off. There we go. And she's off. And straight away, we'll grab that new oil filter. And as I'm doing here, don't forget to lube that ring. Put a smear of oil on the rubber O-ring there. And we'll just spin this new oil filter on. And we literally, the instructions clearly on this filter say, bring it up to the mating surface and then turn it another 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn. Really, you know, that's all you need to do. You know, by hand is more than enough. So, as you saw, old mate, he had wrenched that thing on. All right, so pop that sump plug back in. And just use our Nipex pliers just to snug that up firm. No need to over tighten that. So now that we've got our new oil filter on and we've done that flush, we'll fill it up with premium Penrite 20W50 oil. I expect it'll probably take about 2.5–3 litres from the amount which we removed the other couple of times. But we'll stop, we'll check the dipstick and we'll fill and measure it as required. Alright, so just looking at the dipstick now, you can see it's just come up over the high mark. So we'll start the engine, let it run for 30 seconds, shut it down and recheck. Now, folks, that's so clean, we're actually struggling to even see where the oil's up to on this dipstick, but I think it's come down to the low mark after we've run the engine. So she's pumped a bit of oil through that filter. So we'll add another 1/2 litre or so, and then we'll be good to go. So folks, I reckon it's time to button down the bonnet and let's take her for a drive. Well folks, this is as far as we made it. We made it about 500 metres out into the paddock and she stopped. I reckon she starved of fuel, so I might have to try to jury rig up the temporary fuel tank again. We've done that a few times with the Datsun Ute, and yep, I'm thinking we have to put a new fuel pump in. That's it. So just looking in under the bonnet here, let's have a look at the front of the carburetor, see if my suspicion is true. Yep, you can see absolutely the front of the float bowl there, completely empty of fuel. So that's definitely the issue, she's starved of fuel. So we'll just push that down onto the ground, see if we can get that pumping from the rear again. Oh, that's another thing that's missing. We need a wing nut for that air filter. That's a bit loose somewhere, that's got lost along the way. And then let's stick this up here, let that prime. Whoop. The old jerry rig fitting, she's a bit loose. Might need to get a new Coke bottle cap, that'd be a bit scarce, wouldn't they? There we go. We can see that carburetor's now priming again. So we'll just strap that up there temporarily. fire back up. Tip what's left in the jerry can into the tank. Now go around the front and see if she's pumping. Oh yeah, that's good. Alright, got that reconnected. Let's fire her up. See if she'll run. So there you go, folks. We've managed to get the Datsun Ute back into the shed. It's fairly obvious that we've got a fuel starvation problem. You saw it cut out there in the paddock. We managed to get it going again, but she was cutting out of fuel. I could feel it as I was driving back to the shed. As you can see, we've got it in here, but for now we're just going to leave it sitting. We're going to look for a new fuel pump for this vehicle. At the same time, we'll probably put new fuel filters and everything. Hopefully that solves the fuel starvation problem. But that's it for today. If you have liked this video, do remember to hit that like button. I'll put a link to the series of all the Datsun videos we've done, so you can go back and look at those. If you're interested in any other maintenance and repairs on other cars, got a more modern Mercedes, Audi, Mazda, got an early Ford Falcon on the channel, so you might be interested in those videos. So do hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have a good evening.